All right. Good morning and welcome to the new Assessment Director WIDA Access training for the school year 2025-2026. I am Megan Lopez. I am the Secondary English Language Arts Assessment Specialist and the WIDA Assessment Specialist. And with me is my colleague Tracy Gooley. I'll let her introduce herself.
Good morning. I'm Tracy Gooley. I'm one of our special education assessment specialists here at USBE. So I support all of our WIDA assessments with Megan in the realm of accommodations and accessibility, and then the alternate WIDA access as well. So we're excited to have you. Thanks.
And if you are a new AD, this is just a reminder that we did an earlier new AD training that is also recorded and posted to our assessment YouTube page concerning screeners. So if you haven't had a chance to check that one out, we would encourage you to go and check that one out. And of course, as this is a training, this is recorded and posted for all of you that could not make it. We have other USBE colleagues here to act as chat monitor and to answer questions as well. So we have Scott Ross Kelly, our test administration specialist, and Brittany Broadhead, our accountability specialist, and of course, everybody's favorite, Emily Ing. She is our technologies program, everything specialist to help with technology if you have any issues, if you are live in this training. But we will go ahead and get started with, hopefully, if I can. There we go. Technology is working. With our trainings, we always try to establish our learning intention, rationale, and success criteria. So today, really, our goal is for our new assessment directors to learn about our WIDA assessment requirements. And in this case, we are particularly looking at access for ELs to measure growth and proficiency, get to know what that process is going to look like. This is in order to help ensure that our assessment directors keep their LEAs in compliance with law as related to all Title III laws concerning Utah's ELs. Our success criteria by the end is be able to access our two necessary WIDA accounts in order to make sure we have all the trainings done and we can access the platform as well in order to give this test, to understand where all of the necessary resources are to help you on your journey in administering access, and then also to understand the process that we go through for measuring growth and proficiency in Utah. You're going to hear me use the term in Utah quite a bit, and we did that intentionally because other states get to set their own criteria and processes. So if you did come from another state and you got used to a system per that state, do note that it might be different in Utah because each state gets to establish their own criteria and again, processes per federal requirements with their consolidated state ESSA plans. So just a couple of tips to get us started off, and some websites as well. First, I'm going to draw your attention to that right column, just resources. There are a bunch of different resources that you'll want to bookmark for WIDA assessments. The first one's going to be our USBE WIDA website. So on USBE, we have an assessment and accountability section. And within that section, there is a tab or a menu that you can scroll down and choose assessments and go to the WIDA tab. That is where you're going to find some of the most important information and resources for giving anything WIDA. Also, the next one is going to be our USBE Title III website. That lives under our ESEA initiatives website in USBE's website. So you'll want to go down to Title III in the ESEA initiatives. And probably the most important when it comes to that website is going to the Forms tab. So you'll want to bookmark that as well. That's where you're going to get things like the home language survey, your annual notification letter, and exit letters if a student does reach proficiency. We also have a website hosted by WIDA on WIDA's webpage. And it's just titled Utah. So if you go to WIDA's website, this link will take you right there, but you can go to drop down to state pages on that top menu bar, and you can go to Utah, and then you can also see all of our important dates, entrance and exit criteria, and the access checklist. Another important resource, and this one can be accessed in a couple different ways, is our WIDA Accessibility and Accommodations Manual. This you can access from Utah's WIDA website, so on the WIDA webpage, or you can access it from, we have a link to it right on our WIDA tab in assessment as well. Some tips, probably one of the most important things as you get started as an assessment director is make sure that you have a very solid and robust communication plan. So we want to make sure that you are discussing everything WIDA when it comes to the whole process, who is going to oversee what, and the most important people that you're going to need to be communicating with are your ALS or Title III directors. ALS stands for Alternative Language Services Directors. That's what USBE calls them. Sometimes you know these as your EL specialists within your LEA or your Title III specialists. So sometimes, and every LEA is going to be a little different. Sometimes it's the assessment director that oversees our WIDA assessments, and sometimes it's the ALS director that oversees this. Make sure that you know so you can be communicating and partnering with this person so you're not duplicating work, or the opposite, work may be missed. We don't want that to happen. Another really important person that you're going to need to communicate with to make sure that these assessments are given correctly is your technology coordinator in your LEAs. This could be a district level technology coordinator or school level technology coordinator. Oops. Um, so this means that this person will need to make sure that you have all student devices that will be tested on, updated, and they have the updated secure browser. It's called Insight on the secure browser. So we know that a lot of LEAs use Chromebooks. There were a lot of changes with Chromebooks this past year or over the summer. And the biggest thing is that you no longer have to be in kiosk mode in order to add things. So that's a big change. So make sure that your technology coordinators are aware. We've been sending out this information in numerous assessment director memos, which, speaking of, if you are not getting those contacts and those weekly emails, make sure that you contact Emily Ing or Sandra Owen, and Emily can hopefully put their email contacts in the chat. If you are not getting those, please contact both of them, one or the other, and that way we can double check that we have your email correct, or you might need to check your spam or junk mail as well to make sure you're getting those weekly communications. The other people you'll need to talk to are just school administrators to make sure that you know when and where testing is going to be completed, and ensuring that students have the opportunity to engage in testing. So make sure that you know what those testing dates are. I will say this again many times. You'll hear me on repeat throughout the year. WIDA Access has a 2-month testing window. This is not a testing window in which you need to choose just particular weeks to test. I know that you have to do that with other state assessments. WIDA is not that way. You want to use the entire 2 months to test, Because this test is so directly tied to a student's civil rights, you have to ensure that you're creating ample opportunity for the student to engage in access testing because it is their civil right. If you wait till the last week to do access testing, are you ensuring you are giving ample opportunity? Because what if that student is sick or absent? When is their opportunity to make up that testing? Again, if you wait till the last minutes to do this, are you truly giving them ample opportunity to engage in their civil right? So again, make sure you know those testing windows and are having good conversations about the where and when. And then finally, you want to be speaking with your special education directors. How will accommodations be communicated? And how will alternate access, participants, and administration be handled? Tracy will speak a little more to those special considerations coming up, but making sure that everyone is on the same page. So again, we're going to stress communication, communication, communication. All right. Now, a couple of things that just a broad overview. WIDA is a consortium that Utah belongs to. When we put out for the RFP for English learner assessments, WIDA was our winning RFP quite some time ago. And so we belong to the WIDA consortium. People quite often ask, well, what does WIDA stand for? Well, it's this acronym has stood for quite a few things over time. It was first Wisconsin, Delaware, Arkansas, because they were the original states that created this. Then Arkansas dropped out, and so then things changed again. And then they said, well, let's go with world-class instruction design and assessment. And then they were like, but we're way more than instruction and assessment, so we can't use that. And then finally, they just decided we're just going to be WIDA. It's all caps. It's not going to stand for anything, but it'll stand for everything all at the same time. So WIDA no longer is an acronym. And I'm not sure why it keeps switching screens on me automatically, but you know, adventures. So WIDA is the consortium. When you contact us about WIDA assessments, we have a whole suite of WIDA assessments. So when you say, I'm giving the WIDA, you will actually need to specify which test. There is the WIDA screener and then there is WIDA access. Okay. So on this screen, you can see we have WIDA screener and WIDA access and then the alternate access. Again, WIDA is the consortium, screener and access are the tests. So just so you understand the process, again, we're going to encourage you to go back and watch the screener recording that we've already done. Screener is the assessment to identify a student as EL in the state of Utah. That is the assessment we use to identify a student as EL. Okay. Once a student is identified as EL, okay, and that magic number for all screeners, whether it's kindergarten, paper, online, alternate, to be proficient in the state of Utah when being screened, 5.0 or higher is considered proficient. So if a student gets a 5.0 or higher, they are considered proficient. They do not qualify as EL. Anything lower than that, so a 4.9 or lower on any screener, that student qualifies as EL in the state of Utah. Again, every state has their own different criteria. In Utah, 4.9 or lower will qualify. Once that student is identified, they don't ever have to take that screener again. They will then only have to take the annual ELP assessment, so English Language Proficiency Assessment, which in the state of Utah is Access, okay? So Access is for growth and proficiency, and the student will take that every year until they become proficient and exit EL status, okay? So, and it can either be the regular access or alternate access, which we will get into more into detail in a couple of upcoming slides. But the student again takes access every year. This year, our testing window is going to be January 6th to March 6th. So you might want to mark that on your calendar now. But again, we will be coming back to more detailed dates in a moment. And then also, again, we will show you how to access all those dates as well if we're going a little too quick. So, screener, hopefully just once in Utah, although they're unique situations. Watch the recording, access annually until the student is deemed proficient and exits. So, let's get into the accounts that we're going to need. The first account that you will need as an assessment director is the WIDA Secure Portal account. If you do not have this account, you need to contact me to get this account set up because you will need district level access. And I am going to ask if one of my great colleagues can drop my email in the chat so you can see that readily. So you will need a WIDA Secure Portal account. Once you are set up as an assessment director, you're going to have a couple of responsibilities in here. As an assessment director, you are going to be charged with creating accounts for the WIDA Secure Portal for any test administrators, technology coordinators, but also really any educator in your LEA can have this account. Every educator can have the account in the state of Utah so they can access our free self-paced online professional learning related to English learners. So you can go ahead and go into manage, create accounts. You can do a bulk upload and create it for every educator to just have access to the professional learning. For those giving the tests, though, you'll want to make sure they have access to the assessment trainings. This is also where you're going to monitor those assessment trainings. The assessments have to be sent. Well, let me go back. The trainings have to be given annually and taken annually because the assessments tend to have updates every year that require that you know and are trained every year for those slight subtle changes that might be happening to the system or the script or the student experience that they need to be aware of. So if you did the training last year, that's fantastic. You're going to have a great foundational knowledge, but you do need to take it every year in order to be up to date. And as an assessment director, you need to be monitoring to ensure that everyone is doing those annually. So again, go in and monitor. If you have questions, I can help you on how to monitor everyone. But again, you are going to be in charge of setting up accounts for those in your district or LEA. This is also where you would get all of your free screener materials. LEA shouldn't pay for anything when it comes to any WIDA assessments, whether it's screener or access. So in the secure portal, the secure portal is where trainings are done, accessing PL, managing and making sure you're monitoring administration. Okay. The next account you're going to need is a WIDA AMS account. Okay. Sometimes people refer to it as DRC. Now, every assessment has to have an assessment vendor. So in the state of Utah, for example, for our content summative assessment, we have our RISE assessment, right? So we create that, Utah creates that, we develop that on our own. We have to have a vendor though to help us bring that to life. So we have contracted with Cambium or CAI to bring that to life. Now, as we have purchased WIDA assessments, okay, we don't develop WIDA assessments, WIDA does that. They have contracted with DRC, Data Recognition Corporation. And so DRC is their vendor to bring the WIDA assessments to life. So every assessment director and test administrator and technology coordinator will also need a WIDA AMS account. Again, if you need this district level account, you will need to contact me. Emily would drop my email in the chat so you can access that, and I will be happy to set that up. Once you are set up in AMS, the same thing's going to apply. You're going to need to create accounts for your test administrators, your technology coordinators, and then just building administrators so they can access reports. AMS is going to be the actual test platform. So this is where you will launch the test and run the tests from. So test administrators clearly need this. Technology coordinators clearly need this because this is where they're going to download and manage all student and teacher devices. And then, of course, administrators, so they can access all reports. This is where you will monitor test completion as well. This is also really important because this is where you are going to do materials ordering. And there's going to be a little asterisk next to that because we do the bulk of the material ordering, but you might or may, I suppose, future tense, need to do some material ordering. You definitely would need to order Braille or alternate access materials or any paper materials, because we only do regular access testing as we don't know which students need it. This is also the platform in which you will do data validation and, of course, retrieve test scores. And so let's get into these dates even more. So again, responsibilities and dates. Please become familiar with the WIDA access checklist, the IDM placement, and manuals on the WIDA website. Again, this is a screenshot of what that looks like, and it does have all of our testing dates spelled out right here. Couple of important things to know about WIDA access. This process is going to begin pretty soon in October. That's why we wanted to hold this training now, and make sure it is accessible to our new ADs so you know what to expect pretty soon this fall. So the way that WIDA Access works is in the fall, beginning of the school year, you will be identifying the bulk of your ELs. Now we know that enrollment in registration continues all the way through the year, and you will still be identifying students as they come in through the school year. But normally, the most important time is that October 1st count because that's going to normally determine your Title III funding and what you qualify for. If you have any questions about Title III funding, please contact Dr. Christelle Estrada as she oversees our Title III funding, and she is our Title III specialist. Again, you can see that her contact is also listed on our WIDA website here. And she is also going to be listed on our ESEA Initiatives Title III webpage. So normally the most of your ELs are going to be identified by October to determine those Title III counts by October 1. But what will happen is WIDA is one of two Utah tests that still does not have an automatic roster or an API. We do not have automatic rostering yet because WIDA, again, is a consortium, so we have to make sure that things are set for all states. So it has not happened yet. So what happens is we do a pre-ID download. So what that looks like is our data specialist, Maureen Rushing. So if you have any questions about student rostering, um, then you will contact Maureen Rushing. So I'll ask one of my colleagues to drop her email in the chat so you can see that. Again, she is our data specialist and she oversees all the rostering for our assessments. On October 30th, Maureen will do a download of all students through Utrex and all students that are current ELs as identified by you all. So that means it's really important that your SIS is updated and accurate and marked accurately. She will download all those students and then she will upload all of them into WIDA AMS on October 30th. Now, this is really important because on October 30th, those counts are going to be the counts that we will do our initial material order on. So the state does all the material ordering for you based on that. So any kindergarten students, any grades 1 through 3 that need a writing booklet, um, all those materials will be ordered. For students that are grades 4 and up, they're all online, so they wouldn't need any materials. The only thing you would need are going to be test administration manuals and scripts. So everything will be ordered based on those counts, and students will appear in AMS after this. Okay. So again, this is the website where you're going to see all the most important testing dates. You will get emails about all of this from me in the weekly AD memos and DRC as well to let you know what to expect and when and what you need to do. Now, like I said, you will need to do some ordering. We do not know which students might need paper, such as large print, or Braille. Okay, that's considered a paper form. Or you might have students that really just need the regular paper access because maybe they have little to no technology experience, or we do see instances, while rare, where students are not allowed to use technology for different reasons. They may have been banned. And so those students might need just regular paper. So you would need to order those. Also, alternate access. So there will be a material ordering window in which right after this, you can place those orders. We will not do that for you. You need to do that. Also, you might have new students come in. Okay. WIDA will always send extra materials in overage that normally cover what districts need for extra students coming in and changes in enrollment. But if you find, oh, we actually are very short on some materials because of our change in enrollment and registration. So you can go in and do additional material orders also. Now, another pre-ID upload will take place on December 10th, right before our winter break. We're going to do a second one because we know that enrollments change quite a bit. Okay. We will not be ordering any materials because all of those materials will already be on their way, okay, to you and shipped to you. So, but we will make a second upload, so you do not need to worry about the change in your rosters. Now, after December 10th, if you get new students, it's at that point that you would need to go in and add those students manually. One thing to be aware of with AMS is that no students will ever be deleted. They will always be in there. USBE will take care of deleting and removing students after the window closes. And this is all for just documentation and tracking purposes to ensure that we know where students were, where they should be, and we will take care of that after. So if you say, well, the students that moved are still in there, don't worry about that. We will take care of it. The other date that you will need to be aware of is a data validation. That's going to be after testing closes. Okay, so that will be March 30th to, what is that? April 14th. So you'll have about 2 weeks to do a data validation. Again, we will give you step-by-step instructions. And that is where you're going to go in and make sure students' names are spelled right. Their SSID is right. If you need to apply do not score codes, then you will go in and do that during that time to ensure that the data is correct. And then in early May, so on April 30th, you will get the online reports delivered to you. WIDA will ship you the paper reports in May, and then you will need to distribute those. And this is going to be up to your LEA, but our testing ethics policy says that those reports need to be distributed within 3 weeks of receipt. Now, if your LEA has the ability to send out those electronic reports, please do that within 3 weeks. If you do not have the capability to send those out, you need to wait till the printed ones come to you in May, then you can start your 3 week countdown then. It just depends on the capacity and capabilities of your LEA, but they do have to be shared within 3 weeks. And then, of course, please make sure during all of this happening that you're going to be communicating all the different training opportunities to educators and test administrators. We announce those pretty regularly in the AD memos and AD meetings that take place monthly. All right. So, WIDA access. WIDA access, again, like I said earlier, is free for all LEAs in Utah. You should not pay for anything. We should be paying for it all. If you're paying for stuff, that's a problem. You shouldn't be paying for anything, okay? And it's free for all LEAs through the WIDA Secure Portal and WIDA AMS. So WIDA Access is again our annual language proficiency assessment, and it's given to only current ELs in grades K through 12. And this assessment, again, tied to federal law and also Utah law, and it's to measure academic English growth and proficiency. This is an assessment that is 4 domains. So it's going to have 4 subtests, and those 4 domains are listening, speaking, reading, and writing. Okay. They do have to be given in a specific order, but when you do the test administration trainings, you will find that out quickly. The reason why it has to be given in a certain order is because it is a relatively adaptive test. And it'll place them into tiers to know which next test domain they'll be taking. It's going to report at a proficiency level, and you will get a report that shows a proficiency level in every domain. So all 4 domains, and then it's going to give you 3 composite scores. It's going to give you an oral language composite, which is just listening and speaking, a literacy composite, which is reading and writing, and then overall, which is all 4 domains combined. Score reports are produced at the student level only. Okay, so they're not at a school, so you won't see them at a school level. You can do frequency reports after the fact, um, but you won't get to see it at that school level for each individual student. Okay, the district will get that. They'll get a whole district one where they can have the CSV and they can filter down to schools. Okay. Again, if you have any questions about the different types of reports, you can print the ISRs, individual student reports, in multiple languages as well. So that is a great resource in AMS. But again, you will get that overall proficiency. Okay. So again, who's taking it? All current ELs in the state of Utah. If they are a former EL, they're not taking it if they've already exited. If you suspect they're an EL, they can't take it. Okay. The only way a student can be identified as EL is based on the home language survey and then being screened. And again, we have the guidance. This is a really important resource. This is on our WIDA tab on our USBE website. The USBE WIDA assessment guidance or EL assessment guidance will give you all this information step by step as well. Students that have exited and are in monitoring, they do not take access. Please do not have them come back and take access, okay? Students are in monitoring for 4 years. Okay. They do not take access. Now, here is one of the trickiest topics when it comes to WIDA. You will see when you go to our parental exclusion forms on our parental exclusion tab on our assessment website for USBE, you will see that WIDA, screener, and access are not on our parental exclusion or testing opt-out form. Okay, so why? Why does this happen and why is this important? Well, first, um, parents and guardians, when a student is identified as EL, they can elect to um, decline or exclude a student from language services. So if a student is EL, parents can opt them out of services, not out of the assessment. Okay. I get this question a lot. Why? Again, because this test is so heavily tied to a student's civil rights. All students must have access to content learning. And if they are an English learner, they must be able to know, we must know that the school is providing services and opportunities to learn academic English to access that content learning. Okay. And so we cannot opt out of access testing because it is tied to a student's civil right and access to content learning and ensuring that our students' right to that content learning is being met. Okay. In no way, shape, or form can any student data be shared. Utah has very hefty student data privacy laws, so always make sure that our parents and guardians know no information can ever be shared, especially anything that could ever be used to determine citizenship status or immigration status. Um, just because you're an English learner doesn't mean that you are automatically an immigrant. In Utah, 70% of our English learners are born here in the United States. Okay. Our top language spoken for English learners is Spanish. Our second one is Navajo. Okay. So, again, none of this information can ever be shared. So, it is the LEA's obligation to provide every EL student with the opportunity to test. Okay, again, I'm going to say that. You must provide all ELs with the opportunity to engage in access testing. So you might have parents that adamantly refuse testing, and parents will always have the ultimate right. Okay. We strongly believe in parents' rights here in Utah. So document everything, but make sure that you are communicating with the parents and say, we cannot provide a form. Why can we not provide a form for you to sign? A parent could easily say, I didn't know what I was signing. We also do not want to provide a form where we can just freely opt people out of their civil rights. So let the parents know that you have an obligation to provide the opportunity. Providing the opportunity is not physically dragging a student out of class, sitting them down at a computer and forcing them to take the test. Okay. That is not going to happen. Make sure the parents know that. We're not dragging students out and forcing them to test. We have to provide the opportunity. Some parents say, I'm not going to even send my kiddos to school then. That's not going to help anybody. Okay. Students need to be in school. Let them know. Say, please send them to school when it comes time to testing. We are going to provide the opportunity. We will say, hey, we're doing our access testing. Would you like the opportunity? The student might just decline. That's the end of the story. Or the student might surprise you and say, you know what, I do. Okay. And then we will have to provide them that opportunity to test. There's sometimes on any test when parents say, I want my kiddo to test, they will take this test. And a kiddo goes down to the computer lab and they sit there and do nothing and they are stubborn. Sounds like my 9-year-old. I'm not doing this. Okay. And that will happen as well. But document everything. And just again, remind the parents that the only way a student can be deemed as proficient and be exited from EL services is by taking the access test. Many of our LEAs also provide the seal of biliteracy for students that do test as proficient on access. You will need to just check with your local LEA or school to say, hey, is the seal of biliteracy an option? Can this test count towards that? Being multilingual is an asset. Being able to show that you are proficient in multiple languages is great. If that your student can qualify for the seal of biliteracy, this is a seal that literally will go on their diploma. It looks great on college applications and job applications as well. So remember, this is all tied to a student's civil rights. Normally, once parents realize this is an asset, and we flip the script and show that this is all asset-based, being multilingual is great. Most parents say, yeah, no, I want them to. I want them to engage in their civil right and do this. Okay. If you have issues, please let us know. We are happy to support you because it's not an easy topic all the time. All right, so what are our access options? The first one is we have access for kindergarten. This is going to be given to your kindergarten students. All 4 domains do need to be given. Just remember, screener's a little different. In the first semester, students are only screened with the oral composite or speaking and listening. So sometimes that becomes a source of confusion, but access is all 4 domains because it's taking place in the second semester. And just for, again, reminder with screener, first semester, just speaking and listening, second semester, all 4 domains if you need to screen a kindergartner. Always make sure that you're checking those grade bands and following WIDA's grade band guidance when you're screening a kid. But when it comes to access, they take their grade level. Okay, so kindergarten is paper-based. Again, we will do all those material orders for you. If you need additional materials, you will order those in your AMS account under additional materials. So this is paper-based, one-on-one test administration. Again, we order it all. It'll be shipped to your district. Okay, if you need extras, please jump on during the testing and extra material ordering window and order those. And then we have the regular WIDA Access Online, and this is for grades 1 through 12. For grades 4 through 12, everything is online. Okay, all 4 domains are going to be online. For grades 1 through 3, everything is online except for writing. We don't expect students to be proficient in typing quite yet, so they get to do writing on paper. And again, all of those paper materials are ordered for you. It is still considered online, okay? When it comes to access online, you can do it as a single test administration or you can do it as a group. Most LEAs end up doing it as a group. And again, all materials are ordered for you by us unless you need anything extra from changing enrollment. Then we have the WIDA Access paper. Okay, this is going to include Braille, large print, and regular paper. This is something you must order because we don't know who's going to need this, okay, just based on your SIS and when we do the upload. So you must order these materials. You can do it in the initial materials window, which again, I will communicate out as we get close to it, or in the additional materials ordering window. And again, all materials will be shipped to you via UPS. Again, this is paper-based. It can be a group or single administration. Regular paper access, again, is going to be best for students with little to no technology experience, or for students that may not be allowed to use technology, or for students whose disability impedes access to the online option, but they don't necessarily qualify for the alternate access. Okay. Please do note you cannot do a combination of online or paper. You can't say, well, we're gonna do two domains paper and two domains online. It's all or nothing, okay? So all of it's paper, all of it's online. I know that sounds a little confusing because writing for grades 1 through 3 is paper, but it's still considered online, okay? Now, WIDA alternate. Again, you must order this in AMS in the initial materials or additional materials ordering window, and it will all be shipped to you. This is a paper-based one-on-one test administration manual, okay? I'm going to actually let Tracy come off mute to discuss the students that are going to qualify for this.
Yeah, thanks, Megan. WIDA alternate access is for our students with the most significant cognitive disabilities, and they must meet the participation criteria that is outlined in our alternate assessment participation guidelines. So please look at that. We've updated those guidelines for this year, so there's a little bit of new criteria there. So this is not for just any student that the teachers think cannot access the regular WIDA access. It is specifically for those students whose IEP team has determined they have the most significant cognitive disability. And I think we have some additional information as we move a little bit further.
Yeah, and Tracy, I'm going to ask a question that
Mhm.
we get quite often from our LEAs. So I'll just jump ahead a little for a question that I know we're going to eventually get. And Tracy, if a student qualifies for DLM, do they automatically qualify for alternate access?
Well, it's a depends. So a lot of people, that's how they correlate it, is our students who participate in DLM, which is our alternate assessment to RISE and Utah Aspire Plus, so that they automatically qualify for alternate access. And so most likely when a team has determined that student has the most significant cognitive disability, it impacts them in all areas. So that's one good way to kind of think of that correlation is that's the population of students that this assessment is for. So definitely that's where at the very beginning, Megan had talked about it's imperative that you work with your special education directors and your special education teams, especially when it comes to accommodations for these students when we're looking at that WIDA access paper for students that may have some sort of low incident disability where the online technology component could be a hindrance. And then definitely around our WIDA alternate access assessment. So it still is required. So we do have students who are identified as English language learners, and they do have the most significant cognitive disability as well. One does not trump the other. So there is nothing that says English language, Title III services, trump, special education, they work together. So those teams really do need to be collaborating for these kiddos.
Thank you, Tracy. So I'm hearing that not necessarily. That's why communication and collaboration is so imperative. All right. Thanks, Tracy. All right. So the exit criteria. So students are going to be measured in growth, and this is for your school's accountability for that EL indicator. Brittany Broadhead, who was in our meeting a little earlier, of course, can answer any questions related to accountability with that EL indicator. But so students are going to be measured for growth if they are not exiting and reaching proficiency, or they do reach proficiency. So let's talk about what is proficiency in Utah. So when a student on the access, just regular access, earns an overall composite, so overall is all 4 domains, okay, of 4.2 or higher, and they have a speaking score of 3.5 or higher, they are considered fluent or proficient in academic English and they can be exited from EL status. Okay, so again, overall 4.2 or higher with a speaking score of 3.5 or higher. Okay, that is when you will say this student reached proficiency. They are officially exited from EL status. You will need to update your SIS system. And at that point, they will be put into monitoring status. Again, they are not considered EL during monitoring. They do have to be monitored for 4 years. Okay. Your LEA gets to determine what monitoring is going to look like. Just make sure whatever monitoring does look like, you are keeping track of those students, ensuring that they are still making the proper and adequate academic gains. If at any point you believe that the student, you are collecting data, you are monitoring with fidelity, you have ruled out all other possibilities, disability, absentee or truancy issues, that an academic English barrier does exist, you can screen the students again to requalify them for services potentially. Again, though it has to be, we've ruled out everything out through our monitoring process during those 4 years. Okay. Now, um, one thing to note, in 2023, our state's Consolidated State ESSA Plan, Every Student Succeeds Act plan, was amended and approved by the U.S. Department of Education. We changed our exit criteria in 2023. It was a bit of a wonky year in 23 due to the timing of when we got that approval from the U.S. Department of Ed. So, when we received our 2023 WIDA access scores initially in May, um, our plan wasn't approved quite yet. And at the time, from 23 and prior, the exit score was an overall, just a plain old overall 5.0 or higher. So it was just 5.0 or higher. If a student got an overall proficiency score of 5.0 or higher, were exited from the program. So if you're going back and looking at student records in the past, if they ever reached 23 and before a 5.0 or higher, they should have been exited. Okay. But then come August, our plan was approved by the U.S. Department of Education. So that meant, based on the most recent score, which again was that spring, we had to then go and apply the new exit criteria of an overall 4.2 or higher with speaking 3.5 or higher. Okay. So we had to apply both that year. From 24 on, it was just the new one. Okay. So we have the 24 scores and the 25 scores that are only based on the new one. You cannot do a combination of both. So you cannot say, well, I had a student get a 5.0 and 25 and a speaking score of 3.5 and 23. Can I just exit them? Can we choose? No, you cannot do any kind of combination. It's now just the 4.2 or higher with the speaking score. Okay. You don't get to combine years. They both have to be met. Okay. So, um, again, please do be aware that this changed in 23. So you'll need to look back at student records to see where they actually exited correctly when they should have been. Um, so one thing to note is that we do have another amendment in the works. We are still waiting for approval for our alternate exit. So we had to amend ESSA again to get our alternate exit criteria in there. I believe that at this point we are still waiting, and Scott can confirm this, We are still waiting for our board to approve our ESSA amendment, correct, Scott? So once we get our board to approve our ESSA amendment, which I believe there's going to be a special session to get that done very soon. Is that correct? Scott's not sure. He's like, thanks for putting me on the spot, Megan. So, right now, it is Monday, September 8th, as we are doing this recording. We are still waiting to see what's going to happen with our board to see when that ESSA amendment will be potentially approved by our board. Um, if and when it is approved, then it will be sent off to the U.S. Department of Education for that federal approval for our alternate exit criteria. Um, we cannot exit students taking alternate exit or alternate access until we have that approval. So right now, we just have regular exit until we get approval with our ESSA amendment. Okay. Again, we will be communicating everything out as we move forward with all of the pending approvals. Stay tuned. Who can give WIDA access? I do get this question a lot. It needs to be any employee of your LEA. So anyone that is employed or contracted by your LEA that has completed the testing ethics training and the relevant WIDA access test administration trainings can give it. So again, I'm only saying relevant because if you're an LEA that only serves secondary students, you don't need to do the kindergarten access training. Only do the trainings that are relevant to you. If you don't have any students that are going to be taking alternate or Braille, you don't need to do that training, okay? Only do the trainings that are relevant to you. I'm going to have Tracy pipe in here for the alternate access test administration because this is definitely an area that warrants special consideration.
Awesome. Thanks, Megan. So, as we had crossed the state and started doing some observations around our alternate access administration, we've discovered some things that we really need to make sure that you are definitely working out with your special education department. Is ensuring that someone that is familiar with these students is available to support testing. So if we have people other than our teachers that typically work with our students with the most significant cognitive disabilities administering the assessment, definitely seeing if the special ed teacher or a para educator or someone familiar with that student is able to accompany that testing session. And so the other thing we found was considering a student's communication needs and utilizing that during the administration, as well as bringing in any reinforcement system that they're working with into the testing session as well, to hopefully be in a space that we can better yield accurate results for these kiddos. So really encouraging your test administrators, if that is someone that is not the typical person that works with these kids on a day-to-day basis, making sure that they really are communicating well with that student special education teacher and those that work with them, and figuring out what needs to come into that testing session to set that student and the test administrator up for the best success.
Thank you, Tracy. One other thing that I will say, and this isn't just for alternate, it's for all students. The practice tests allow students to practice. There are free practice tests online that can be printed as well. Allow students to engage in the practice testing. A lot of students kind of freeze up, especially during the speaking domain. Speaking into a microphone to a computer, that it's a little weird and intimidating if that's your first time. The student taking the access test, especially the speaking portion, they should not be doing that for the very first time. They should have practiced, okay? So please make sure that you are utilizing those practice tests and getting students used to speaking to a computer if they're doing the online testing, or just getting used to the testing format. Okay. It is a very computer interactive one, so utilize those practice tests. The board, Scott just said the board has not posted a date yet for the S amendment meeting, but we will update everyone once we know the details. Thank you, Scott Ross Kelly. All right. So
Hey
again,
Megan, can I
practice
jump in and add one
tests.
more thing?
Absolutely.
Yeah, so back to kind of earlier, Megan had spoken where using the WIDA access paper may be appropriate, especially if we have students whose disability may impede them from actually accessing one of our domains. So we also are in a space where sometimes it is appropriate to exempt a student from participating in a certain domain. And so if you find that you have a student that is in that space where it would not be appropriate, even with accommodations, for them to access a domain, you can fill out an exceptional request form and submit that to Megan and I for a domain exemption for that approval. And we can actually calculate a student score if they've taken less than three domains. Emily, if you can throw my email in the chat as well, but you can always email me or access that uh, exceptional accommodations request form on the USBE Special Education Assessment webpage.
Thank you. That is a great addition. And this year, a new enhancement, which we're really excited about, is students that do qualify for that exemption, that exceptional exemption to a domain. DRC, with my approval and Tracy's approval, of course, will be able to actually produce those score reports for you. So it won't just be us calculating it and sending it to you. There will actually be a score report if it was approved by us. All right. So again, just, oh, there we go. Broader considerations. There is, again, that WIDA assessment guidance that's posted. Okay. And so always check that because there's always unique situations. Okay. Remember, as I stated from the outset, every state has a different criteria and process. So if, again, you're coming to us from another state, welcome. Um, and you have probably a great foundation. Just make sure that you know Utah's specifics. Again, we discussed parental exclusion. Parents can opt out of services, but you cannot opt out of access testing as it is directly tied to a student's civil rights. Okay. Parents can opt out of services through that annual notification letter. Again, it's annual, so it needs to be sent home every year for every student that qualifies, not just identified, but qualifies. Okay. Um, and then if a student does exit, you would send home that exit letter available on the Forms tab through the Title III website. At the bottom of this, it's a little bit hard, but I did link, since some of you are watching the recording, to the Parent Resources website on WIDO's webpage. If you're having a hard time finding that, please contact me and I will share that link with you. This is a great resource because it has a ton of just parent notification letters, explanations for everything happening with screener or access testing, and it comes in a plethora of languages as well. All right, so training opportunities. In just about a week, we will be having Understanding WIDA Alternate Access Score Reports webinar training. So this will be a live virtual training. You can still register for that in Midas. If you cannot attend that, it will be recorded. WIDA is doing that training in partnership with USBE. So if you cannot attend that, it'll be recorded and it'll be posted to your WIDA Secure Portal account under webinars. And then we have three in-person trainings coming up in October. Those are still open for registration. Those will be held here in Salt Lake City at USBE in Basement West. That one, those trainings are limited space. We have a cap of 40 participants, so please sign up um, through Midas. And then we have later trainings coming this winter. Um, again, sign up in Midas. That last one, section 4, that will be virtual. So section 1 virtual, sections 2 and 3 in person, section 4 virtual again. If you can't make it to 1 and 4, those will be recorded and posted. For sections 2 and 3, those will not be able to be recorded and posted since they are in person and live. Please sign up, get your team signed up, whoever wants to attend. The virtual ones, I believe we have a maximum of like 100 folks that can attend. Please do. And then finally, now coming back to our ultimate goals, learning about our assessment requirements, in particular access, in order to measure our growth and proficiency of our ELs. Um, and to make sure that our ADs were following the laws as it relates to ELs in the state of Utah. And so how did we want to go about that? It was understanding our two accounts, which hopefully we know now are WIDA Secure Portal and WIDA AMS. Understanding where to access the necessary resources. That one may have been a little harder as you may be reviewing this in a recording. Um, Contact me. I can give you the whole list and rundown from this slideshow, or I can just share this slideshow with you if you prefer. And then also understanding the process for getting these students tested in order to measure their growth and proficiency in order to exit them as proficient in the state of Utah. So with that, we're going to be wrapping it up, and I'm going to give my colleagues time to ask any questions that they hear or get also. Here is my contact information. Here's Tracy's contact information. I am going to say right now, you hear us all say it, email is probably the best and fastest way in order to contact us because we are quite often in trainings or in meetings with LEAs, so it's hard for us to answer phone calls. We do have our numbers posted here. Most likely you're going to need to leave a message and be patient with us returning that phone call, but quite often we can sneak a peek at our email during the day. So email is going to be the fastest way. So with that, we want to thank you. And I'm going to ask my colleagues to come off mute if they have any questions that they would like to ask that they quite often see us getting from our LEAs around Utah when it comes to access and our English learners in Utah. So colleagues, what questions might you have? I'm putting them on the spot, by the way.
I think we did a good job covering most things. So just let us know, reach out if you have any questions or if things come about, and keep an eye out on AD memos and presentations as we move through AD meetings for the year.
Yep. Thank you all so much. Happy testing.